Grading has never been more popular. We have the data now from the first half of the year, and almost every grading company set record numbers in the number of cards graded for the first half of the year. But what does all of this data mean to you? What company or companies are your best choices for grading today? Has that shifted with the new data that we are now looking at? And is grading still worth it for all kinds of different cards? We're going to break that all down today with our grading expert, Joe Davis of GotBaseballCards.com. He's been on the show a bunch of times before, you know Joe, and he is back today again to make sense of everything happening in the world of grading. And we are also going to be previewing the upcoming National. Joe has been to a ton of Nationals, and he has expanded his setup this year for the National in Cleveland. So he's going to give us some insights into what we all have to look forward to. So without further ado, let's bring Joe Davis from Got Baseball Cards onto the show. All right, Joe, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you back in studio again today.
Great to be back. Love what y'all are doing with the store.
Appreciate it.
Just so good to be back.
And excited to see your shop as well. So I think most of the audience probably knows at this point, but Joe, you have Got Baseball Cards, which is a shop about 45 minutes or an hour from mine here in Atlanta.
Correct.
And you've been doing a lot of expansion of your store. You're adding showcases and have increased your retail footprint as well of the store. So that's a great sign for I think for the overall sports card market here in Atlanta, and hopefully it's a sign for the whole industry.
Exactly.
Yeah, that expansion's taking place. Obviously, a big part of your business is grading. It's a huge part of what you do. You're one of the biggest bulk graders, especially to PSA and SGC in the world.
Right.
And we use you. We use you both here at Cards HQ. We have customers who walk into Cards HQ every day with cards they want to grade. We collect them here at Cards HQ.
Right.
And then we actually you actually pick up the cards and you pre-screen them and send them off for grading, the whole thing.
Correct.
And then we also have a lot of people that submit cards by mail through our Sports Card Investor website, sportscardinvestor.com/grading. And those get routed through you and your service as well. These numbers that I'm looking at that we're going to break down now for grading for the first half of the year are eye-popping. And I imagine you're seeing it in your business too, right?
Oh, yes,
are you
we
just
are.
continuing to see just a huge number of cards come through?
Nothing. Grading doesn't slow down. I mean, those who said 2 years ago, like, oh, this was just, we're in the bubble, it's over, and we've hit these crazy numbers, but now it's going to tail off. It hasn't happened at all. Because yes, some of the sales aren't where they used to be, but the demand for graded cards is still there.
Yeah, and a lot of people said that. And I mean, I understand why people would have assumed that, right? Like there was a period of time when last year, we all thought grading numbers were astronomical and they couldn't possibly continue. But when we look at the year-over-year gains, when we look at the first half of 2024 compared to the first half of 2023, overall, there were 23% more cards graded in the first half of 2024 compared to the first half of 2023. And with sports cards specifically, because that includes both sports cards and TCG, with sports cards, there were 25% more cards graded. That's across all the grading companies. PSA in sports cards was up 25% year over year. SGC was up 60% year over year. CGC and Beckett actually both dropped in sports cards.
Right.
CGC was up a ton with TCG, in fact, TCG more than doubled with its TCG business. Overall, 25% increase in sports cards, 23% increase in grading overall when you include in TCG. And that's the first half of 2024 compared to the first half of 2023. Right. Do these increases surprise you?
No, not at all. Because, I'm seeing, I'll give you an example. We had a collector. He's literally been a customer of mine since 1991. Never graded a card. He contacted me a few weeks ago and said it was time to sell his collection. And I said, well, then I really need to recommend you grade all the best stuff. And he's like, yep, that's exactly what we need to do. So I went through, we're still going through about 500,000 cards in his collection.
Oh my gosh,
and pulling out massive amounts of vintage, modern. I was going through notebooks full of Ohtani rookies, Judge rookies, and stuff that he's never graded, and now they'll all be heading off to the grading companies. And so this is a guy who was opposed to grading for decades, and now that he's ready to sell, he realizes that's how he can maximize the return on his collection.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, it's, especially if you're getting high grades, you continue to see, PSA 10s especially sell for, multiples, 3x, 4x over what you could get for the raw version of that card. Sometimes, obviously, in that's modern cards and vintage, it can be, way more than that.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're seeing my team comments to me weekly, like, we are seeing so many new submitters. I mean, we have repeat submitters who send us stuff over and over every month, but we're seeing so many new names who are submitting for the first time. And so that shows that either more using our services or just more coming into the industry, getting cards graded. And so it's exciting, and it's a mix. It's not just sports, it is TCG. And of course, we're known more for sports, but we see a large number of TCG coming through also.
Yeah. These first-time graders, do you get a sense, are they new people to the hobby? The example you just used, obviously, was somebody who had a lot of raw cards, was a collector for many years, and maybe didn't see the value in grading, but now that they're going to go sell their collection, they understand they need to grade in order to maximize value, which is absolutely true. But for the other people that are coming to you, are these first-time hobbyists, or are these just older collectors that just are now considering grading for the first time?
It's a mix. I mean, we certainly have some who are finally trying grading for the first time because they've seen how it's sustained over decades, and there's continued demand and increased demand for graded cards. But we have some who are digging into their collection and finally grading it. We have some who are trying it for the first time. But a lot of them, as we know, the hobby's grown exponentially over the last few years. So we have so many new people in the industry, some who just got their feet wet in the industry, and now they're adding grading to the mix of what they're doing with their cards. So it's a mix. I can't pinpoint it exactly, but the percentages, but we're seeing it all over the map where cards are coming from.
And we have, within Cards HQ, it's been interesting. We have a lot of first timers walking into this store. A lot of people who are coming in, who are buying their first card ever, their first box ever. And we've had a lot of people that are submitting cards for grading for the first time ever. So I know a lot of the cards that we're intaking here, which we then forward over to you.
Yes.
I know a lot of those are coming from first time submitters.
Right.
And a lot of those are new collectors. A lot of those are people that are being, that are getting into cards really for the first time. So it's interesting to see. I think it's a great sign for the hobby overall. I think these grading numbers are a great sign for the hobby overall, because it shows a section of the hobby that's continuing to grow year over year. It's interesting. There were kind of so many doomsday theorists out there, not just about grading, but about all aspects of the hobby. And I understand why. Prices, declined steadily in 2022 and 2023 for your average card. Things have definitely leveled off a bit now, and certain segments of the hobby have actually had a really strong year, others not as much. But when you sit there and you see prices go down for 18, 24 consecutive months, I understand why people would start to say, like, well, the whole thing is crumbling, grading's going to die, card stores are going to die, but that's, it's not the case at all. And these grading numbers prove it.
Yeah. Because when you look at the number of new collectors still coming into the industry, that's what I look at.
Yep.
Not just, a temporary dip, and temporary can be over 2 years. I mean, you can see, if you look at long-term cyclical changes in the industry, a lot of cards are still at where they were. They're higher than they were pre-COVID. A lot of stuff is. So one other thing to think about with these numbers and the volume increase is the fact that PSA's ramped up, SGC's ramped up. They're turning cards quicker. So when you have that velocity and you're turning your basic level submissions quicker, then submitters can turn their dollars over more times in a year. If you go from 2.5 months to 1.5 months, think of how many more times you can turn your dollars over in the course of 1 year. And so that's one of the reasons the numbers are increasing, because they're actually turning them around. So a lot of that's the same submitters submitting more cards because they're turning their dollars and sending more cards in.
Yeah, which is a great thing. I mean, the cycle of money, if you think about it, cards being held up in a storage room of a grading company where they're just sitting there and they can't there's no utility for them at that moment. They're not in anyone's collection to enjoy, and they're also not able to be listed on eBay for sale or taken to a card show and sold or traded or whatever it may be. It really it limits the velocity, as you said. Like that section of cards is out of play.
Yes.
And so the shorter the turnaround times become from the grading companies, the less cards you have locked up in purgatory at any one moment in time.
Yeah, considering we had that peak where Nat Turner's admitted that I think they had 13 million cards sitting in a warehouse.
And a lot of them sat there for a year.
We had I think at the worst it was like 18, 19 months to get some submissions.
That was back in 2021. I mean, it was absolutely a wild time for the hobby. Very happy that things are not that way today.
Yes.
And I've said this on one of my shows before. This was somewhat of a controversial comment. Some people really push back in various ways on this, but I said, and I continue to maintain and believe that this is true, that the experience for new collectors who come into the hobby today for the first time is much better than the experience of new collectors who came into the hobby for the first time a few years ago. And I say that for a couple of reasons. I say that grading is one. The fact that you can now actually get your cards graded effectively and much more efficiently than previous.
The liquidity of what you buy.
But price stabilization. It's you're certainly some cards are still going down and others are going up, but you've got more of a fighting chance to buy a card and actually see it increase in value than you did in the second half of 2021 and all of 2022 when it seemed like almost everything was going down.
Yes.
And because we saw a big slide in card prices over the course of the second half of 2021, 22, some of 23, it's more affordable for people to get in today. You can buy singles of a lot of important players. You could buy a lot of important singles, key rookie cards of players, and get in a lot more affordably than you could have a couple of years ago, which makes the experience better. Now, I've said this on the show before. People push back because they point to things like the price of certain boxes is still very high. People point to breaking as a problem in the hobby in their opinion today. I don't quite share that viewpoint. But I don't know. Overall, I think the experience for the new collector is better, and this turnaround time on grading is one of the reasons why.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you on the point that, I just look at shops. I have friends across we both do across the globe, who have taken their shops to the next level. They've improved. They've sought, instead of just being a place to buy and sell cards, they want to give their collectors an experience. We certainly do that. You certainly do that here. And I have many friends. I'm amazed at the size of some other stores that I hear about opening. And I'm like, we have almost 11,000 feet. And I was like, I thought we had a big store. And now I have friends like, oh, we're opening 16,000 feet. We're opening this. And that's incredible, the amount of product that you can put out and singles you can offer and the experience that you can give collectors when you do that. And that was not the focus 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so, but now with the growth of the hobby, certainly collectors, it's a whole new ball game for collectors and the experience that they can enjoy at great hobby shops.
Yeah, you're right. And that's absolutely, hobby shops are improving and getting better as well. So those are all great points for sure. All right, I want to break down these numbers a little bit more and talk about some of these grading companies specifically. Sure. So I want to concentrate on the sports card numbers specifically, because most of our audience watching is more sports card oriented than TCG oriented. So the first half of the year, January through June of 2024, we saw a total of 5.68 million sports cards being graded. And again, that was up 25% compared to the same period a year ago. Of that 5.68 million, 4.55 million were graded with PSA. 833,000 with SGC, which is still a very small number compared to PSA, but for SGC, it was a 60% year-over-year increase. So they saw, percentage-wise, the biggest growth, even though they're still kind of a small fraction of PSA. Then you had Beckett at 180,000 cards. That is down 9% year-over-year, but it is amazing to think about Beckett at 180,000 sports cards in 6 months and SGC at 833,000 sports cards in
over
6
six
months.
Times as many as Beckett. Yeah.
And then PSA at 4.55 million. It's Beckett doesn't even register on the radar compared to PSA anymore. It's such a small, tiny subset compared to PSA. And then you have CGC at only 123,000. That's down 33% year over year. CGC, while they've had a lot of success on the TCG side, has struggled to ever really gain traction and hold on the sports card side, it seems, and their numbers are just reflecting that they just don't have traction there.
Right.
What do you make of those numbers?
I think one of the most important things is the growth of SGC. You know, a few months ago when I was on the show, that was when collectors had just bought SGC, and we were debating about what's going to happen. Are they going to become the discount brand? Are they going to hold their value? How are people going to, you know, and we've seen tremendous growth with SGC since then. You know, my opinion then and now was that, you know, now collectors owns them, they should be even more respected because the leading authentication company in the world now owns that brand. And so I think there's great synergy now for, you know, and so we've seen, you know, tremendous growth. Even though PSA continues to grow, SGC percentage-wise has grown even further. And so that, you know, now if you look at what percentage of their submissions are relative to PSA, they've grown significantly the last few years. And so especially with vintage, they're a phenomenal option because their resale value on a lot of big ticket vintage cards is right up there with PSA. They still don't quite get the same numbers on modern, but they have a ways to go there. But with vintage, they're very respected. And we literally had about a $20,000 submission last week, and the guy said, no, I want everything going to all vintage. He wanted every card going to SGC. And Doug, our head of grading, he was like, well, there's 51, I think it was a 51 Mantle. And he was like, I would normally maybe try this at PSA. And this was his opinion. And he said, but, you know, this guy just wants every single card at SGC. And that shows the growth where they're becoming a number one option for some submitters. Yeah. So your question about, agree with you on CGC, they've definitely done well on the TCG side, which is a perfect marriage for them since they're so well known for the comic grading. And part of their confusion is, you know, they were CSG, then they changed the label, and then they changed the scale a little bit, and then they changed the holder again. And now I think they've got uniformity now with using just the CGC brand, which is probably in hindsight what they should have done to start with, since everyone knew CGC comic grading. So we don't see any traction for them on sports right now. TCG, yes. And as far as BGS, they've gone through some changes. I know the guy who's leading the grading division now is a longtime hobby veteran, really good guy. Hopefully he will help turn some things around there. We're still seeing very minimal number of submissions with BGS, unless it's some outliers like booklets, which I think they're still the only one that does the large booklets. And some unique stuff like blank backs, certain things that PSA, SGC may not grade. There are certain things that BGS will grade. So we do get some of those types of submissions, but they're still lagging and struggling for sure.
And that's been the story of the last couple of years. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, about Beckett's numbers falling off, but it seems like every time we get a new updated data set like we have here, they're just falling even further behind. Everyone's kind of waiting for the, you know, can Beckett turn it around? It can't really get any worse for them, can it? But then every time you look at the numbers, it's gotten worse for them. Like it's just been this continuous path of decline that they've been on now for a few years. And it's as a hobby veteran like you are, I imagine that's got to be a little bit tough for you to see.
It's painful. I mean, I'm friends with Dr. Beckett, and even though, you know, he's not, you know, he sold the company many, many years ago, but just his brand, it's painful to see that, you know, as someone who, you know, as we've shared, there was a time where BGS was on par with PSA in resale value and demand, and just a lot of, I think a lot of senior management mistakes have happened behind the scenes, and there's been a lot of things. I've preached this for years, and I think you and I agree on it. The fact that they've stuck with Gem Mint at 9.5, I think, is one of their biggest mistakes, and they almost fixed it. And then instead, it
backtracked
up on them instead. Yeah. So
what a couple days that were.
Yeah, I still think that's one of their biggest things that's holding them back.
Yeah.
They're not adopting what is the industry standard.
I agree. I completely agree with you. I think that's hurting them for sure, personally. Yeah, it's a shame. You know, I continue to hope that I think at this point it would take them being bought out. I don't know that, and I don't know their leadership, but like it seems like it would take some type of major event for them to kind of get back on collectors' radars again. I mean, I've been
some kind of shakeup.
Yeah, some kind of shakeup. You know, I mean, I've been wondering if Fanatics at some point will swoop in and buy them or something. I don't know, but it is kind of a shame to see the brand just. And I've got a lot. There are still many key important cards out there in BGS Labs. I own some. I own some, really high-end, expensive, important cards in BGS Labs.
Right.
I don't want to see the brand die entirely.
No.
There's certain cards I don't want to move over to PSA. I've even got some like BGS Black Label 10s on really key cards that like I would never convert those to PSA because that Black Label has some extra significance.
Correct.
But that requires BGS to continue to have a heartbeat, because if they don't, then 30 years from now, I don't know that anyone's going to
care what's a Black Label.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, that was that old company.
Yeah.
It's like they're going to look in hindsight. So yeah, I certainly hope they hold on, because they are a very important brand in the industry.
I agree. I hope they revitalize. Okay, so if somebody is submitting today, and by the way, this is a good time to mention once again, you can submit through Joe Davis and get the pre-screening they do and everything like that is awesome. They save you. In fact, talk about that real quick, just for people who don't know.
For those who don't know, we offer a pre-screening service. Our head, of course, I've been in the hobby for 4 decades now, but my head of grading was a customer of mine back in 1991, and so he's been a lifelong collector, and we literally review it. It's a paid service, but we will review the cards. We will, depending on what you pay for, we have a $2 pass-fail service where if you just where we say, this should not get graded, it's not worth your investment, it's a pass-fail. For $4, we do a detailed review where we'll give a grade estimate, and we'll actually mark on the outer sleeve, like, okay, this corner's the issue, or there's a dimple on the back of the card, or there's surface scratches, or you've got a crease, or you've got, the centering issue, all the different things that could fall into play. And we're going to even offer it on site at the National for 24-hour turnaround at $10 a card. And we're going to have to limit it because we can only screen so many cards in an evening. But we literally reject thousands of cards per month that collectors end up not spending $19 or whatever price point, whoever they're sending to. We save collectors literally tens of thousands of dollars every month for a very minimal fee for our expert labor to examine the card thoroughly. I mean, everyone's excited that PSA is now offering details on express and higher service, but that's hundreds of dollars per card. They can pay us $4 and get all that information and decide whether they want to submit it or not. So that's why that has grown tremendously, the volume that we get for that. So,
and this is the argument for using a bulk submitter versus submitting directly to PSA, right? Sure, you can send directly to PSA, or you can go through Joe's team, and Joe's team's going to do all this pre-screening for you at a very affordable price, and you don't have to join PSA's Collectors Club,
correct,
which means that you can actually take advantage of some lower prices than you would get without being a Collectors Club member. So
and we do all the work. I mean, they don't even have to fill out a form. They can just literally, we photograph every card when it arrives. So if someone wants to send us 500 cards, they don't have to fill out paperwork for 500 cards. Yeah. We check in every single shipment under camera as it's opened. We shoot images of the cards, send them to let's say, here's everything we received for you. Then after we screen it, we send back, here are the rejected cards, here's why they were rejected, so forth.
Yeah, so there you go. So
it's a huge time saver as well.
If you want to use Joe's service, 2 ways you can do that through us here. You can go to sportscardinvestor.com, click grading in the main menu bar, and you can submit them right by mail. There's a simple form to fill out, and you mail them in, and Joe's team will take care of all of them for you.
Yeah.
Or if you happen to be in the Atlanta area, just walk into Cards HQ, and we'll take them for you here at Cards HQ, and then Joe's team picks them up and runs the whole service and communicates with you as to the status. Perfect. So today, someone walking in to our store, your store, submitting online, wanting to get their cards submitted, if it's ultra modern, are you advising, first and foremost PSA as the best option for ultra modern? Are there instances where you're advising one of the other companies?
Well, it depends. If one of our first questions is, how quickly do you want the card back? If they're in a hurry, SGC is quicker turnaround than PSA on bulk submissions. If they're only focused on resale value and it's ultra modern, today, as we speak, I would normally recommend PSA on ultra modern, because in general, the rule of thumb right now is that the resale is going to be stronger with PSA.
Right.
But again, it boils down to, I mean, some of them, if it's a PC card and they really love the black tuxedo holder, I have no problem recommending that. Hey, if you're going to put this up, you want it back quickly, and it's going to go in your. I have tons of SGC cards in my collection, and so there's a lot of questions we ask. We say, what's your objective with this card? Is it just for resale? Do you need it quickly? If that player's trending and really hot and they need it back right away, then SGC might be our preferred option if they want to have it back in a couple weeks and only pay the entry level price.
And then with vintage, there's a little bit more of a level playing field with SGC and PSA in terms of resale value. So I imagine the decision there becomes a little bit, maybe the decision points, if you're looking at resale value as a primary concern, the decision point's still a little bit closer when it comes to making a decision with vintage.
Right. We often push the mid-grade stuff to SGC because it's a little cheaper, turnaround's a little quicker, resale value similar. If it's a candidate for a 7 or an 8, we're probably still going to recommend PSA because and if it's high grade commons, minor stars, we're probably going to recommend PSA because of their pop report. Yeah. Because the commons bring a premium in a lot of your vintage sets. Because there are set builders who are chasing 7s and 8s and so forth. So if it's a mid 4 or 5 grade Mantle, Aaron, Clemente, whatever, SGC can be a great option as well.
Okay. All great advice. All right, let's switch gears for a minute, Joe. I want to talk about the National. We're a couple of weeks out, not even a couple of weeks out by the time this video releases here. And you've been to a bunch of these. Now, I have not been to a National in Cleveland yet. I've been to Chicago, I've been to Atlantic City. I've not been to Cleveland. Mm-hmm. Tell me what to expect. What should I expect here with this Cleveland National?
Well, one of the logistic challenges is that unlike Chicago, where there's plenty of hotels within walking distance, there's nothing within walking distance there. So I think we're staying about 4 miles out. So for logistics, for staying there, it's a little more of a challenge. But parking is really good. I mean, there's a ton of parking around the facility, which is good. The show, as we were speaking beforehand, the show floor is going to be smaller this year, as you pointed out to me. You said about a third smaller from what you've heard. So there won't be as many booths, as much square footage, but we love shows in the middle of the country. I mean, we've done very well at Cleveland shows dating back to mid-90s, the shows we've set up there, and usually the turnout is really good, much better than like an Atlantic City venue. So we expect really good turnout. We're doing some different things this year that I'd be happy to share about, but as far as the show itself, I mean, there's nothing like the National, and so I look forward every year. For me, it's like a family reunion because there's so many friends I have in the hobby over the decades that I see once a year at the National. But it's we always recommend comfortable shoes, drink water, stay hydrated, bring cash. No matter where it's being held, those things are always critical. But get rested up because it's a workout, especially if you go for the whole week. Yeah. But we have 600 square feet this year, which we actually have 4 booths all into one big quadrant. So 600 square feet. We're going to have probably about 20,000, 25,000 vintage singles priced individually, raw cards for set builders, and then we're going to have thousands of slabs everywhere from $15 to $15,000. So we'll have a price point for everyone. But again, one of the coolest things we're doing this year is we're going to be taking on-site cards for screening. We're going to be taking submissions on site, and we'll be taking consignments on site.
Is this your biggest setup that you've ever done at the National?
Yes. The last few years we've had 450 square feet. Okay. So we have 600 square feet. We're taking 12 team members to work the show this year.
That's a big crew. And how many years have you done the National now?
Well, the first one I attended was, I think, 89 when I was in college. But I think this is like our 24th or so to set up at.
Wow.
So I've lost track. But yeah, we've been setting up since 91.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had.
Wow, incredible. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it for sure. I do have to admit, I'm nervous about the proximity of the hotel situation that you're talking about, Chicago is so great from that aspect of it. And I will say the convention center in Chicago, I think, is kind of subpar. Like the lighting's not great and the food options aren't very good. And people have told me that Cleveland Convention Center is a little bit nicer. The Atlantic City Convention Center was actually a lot nicer. It was a nice convention center. Just nobody really liked being there.
Right.
And, but the convention center was nice. Chicago's convention center is not as good, but the fact that there's so much right around it in terms of a whole bunch of hotels within walking distance and restaurants and all that kind of stuff makes Chicago, in my opinion, a really great spot to do it. It's back in Chicago for the next 3 years after this one. So we have that to look forward to, but this will actually be my first time ever in Cleveland. I've been to most cities in the U.S. I think I've been to almost all major cities in the U.S., but I've never been to Cleveland, Ohio. So so I'll have to check out the downtown and everything a little bit. So hopefully the driving, in to the show each day won't be too much of a drag. That's, as I said, that's kind of the only thing I'm worried about with this one.
Yeah, it was, if I remember, I forgot the last time it was there, but it was pretty easy to get in and out of the show. They ran it well, so hopefully that will be the case this year as well. Yeah.
Well, I'm certainly excited about it. Do you think, I doubt it's going to hit the numbers that Chicago hit last year. Last year, Chicago's show set the all-time national attendance record. I think it was 110,000 or something of that nature. The show floor was also the biggest that the National had ever done in history. This year, the show floor is a little bit smaller because, of course, they signed the contract for this a few years ago before they realized.
Who knew what they would need then?
Right. And Cleveland is maybe not quite as accessible of a city as Chicago is, right? Chicago is a major airline hub in a bigger city and all that kind of stuff. So, I'm expecting there to be a little bit of a drop off this year. But are you still expecting this to be a, very well attended show with lots of buzz around it?
Yeah. I mean, as I've said, the hobby's still growing. More and more collectors are still being added to all the collectors in the hobby, and there's still incredible demand for vintage. There's incredible demand for graded cards. There's still records being set on some cards, and so that all people like Ken Golden putting out his show on Netflix. People see that and they get excited. And they're like, "Oh, I want to go to a big show and see what kind of stuff's being sold there." So a lot of people who haven't been in the hobby are being exposed in different ways. Shows you put on, a lot of different content is being put out there that's driving new collectors into the industry. And so I expect to see a really strong turnout. If I had to take a guess, I wouldn't expect we're going to see Chicago, but I would say we'd probably hit 80-85% of last year, I would think. And so I'm hopeful as a vendor, since the show floor is a little smaller, that each vendor, will get a bigger percentage of those sales. But it's there's plenty of hot things going on in the industry. You talk about Skeens and you talk about Stroud and Wembanyama. There's guys who are trending that people are chasing, and people are going to come out to buy up quantities of their cards. And so that's true every year. It's just who's the hot one that particular. Caitlin Clark. I mean, I don't know how many times I got asked, "Do you have any Caitlin Clark autographs?" And I was like, "I got some rookie cards, but I don't have any autographs."
Caitlin Clark's a bonus this year.
Oh yeah,
because it's almost like we've added a whole new segment. It's that nobody saw coming. Like, women's basketball cards were not on the radar in previous nationals. That wasn't a
not
thing.
At all.
All of a sudden, it's like women's basketball cards, and her cards specifically, and even some of the others like Angel Reese as well are like getting more attention. They're getting unbelievable amounts of attention
deserved
right
attention.
now. And deserved attention.
Yes.
Deserved attention. But that's a whole nother thing now for like people to go after and chase.
Right. Yeah. So it's a whole new segment of collectors that could be coming this year that have never been to one.
So that's really interesting.
It's going to be exciting, and I can't wait to. We always love meeting with submitters and consigners, people who work with us, meeting them in person, and we love seeing what each other company is doing. We always tell my team members, this is an education. This is a year's education in the hobby inside of 1 week. So walk the floor, see what others are doing, learn from them, see what we can glean from that to improve our company.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. And, you mentioned a couple of those names. One thing that, that I've learned, and you've seen this over many more years than I have, and we've talked about this before, the importance of a key rookie player and how that key rookie player can really drive the market for cards of that sport in that particular year. And if you have a year where you don't have a key breakout rookie, it can hold, or a rookie that's getting a lot of hype and attention, it can hold back that entire year's worth of releases, product value, interest, excitement, even as far as maybe even attendance at a card show, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got some guys who are really making the headlines and bringing the hype, it drives so much interest and excitement around the new product releases, chasing their singles, going to card shows to find their cards. We have almost a perfect situation right now. We have CJ Stroud in football. We have Victor Wembanyama in basketball. And you just mentioned Paul Skeens in baseball, who kind of has broken on, to the market here recently as a breakout star.
Right.
And we also have some other great young stars in baseball as well, like Gunnar Henderson is as hot as can be right now. Obviously not a rookie this year, but last year's Rookie of the Year winner, right? So you've got this across all the sports. There's a major rookie to chase, and more than one. I just mentioned the top guys, but there's a major rookie to chase in each of the sports. And by the way, hockey, I didn't mention hockey, but you got Bedard in hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is every bit as strong and not stronger, in terms of what people are expecting his career to do compared to some of these guys. So you got Bedard in hockey as well. And then you've got Caitlin Clark to add into the mix with women's basketball cards. That's like I don't know what is the name of a five-way. I don't know, quad. It's like a quadfecta, but you add in Caitlin Clark, and it's like five incredible things that are all happening right now across five sports.
Yeah, and it's we see it every day. We see the submissions come in. I mean, I personally have submitted a massive amount of Stroud, Wembanyama, and Caitlin, and very happy about all those submissions. It's exciting because each one brings in different people, and especially with Caitlin, you're bringing a whole different group of collectors, and some who've never collected, and now they're excited, to chase cards of her and autographs of her, and the other players. So that's, I would never typically say this, but WNBA Prism may be the hottest product of the year. Normally it's one we buy and we go, I guess we need to buy it so that we can get some other basketball product. But this year it could be the hottest product of the year.
It's amazing to think about, but very, very exciting indeed. All right. Well, this has been great. We've covered a lot of ground. For anybody out there, if you're going to the National, please stop by Joe's booth at the National, Got Baseball Cards, and also Sports Card Investor will be in the corporate area of the National. Sports Card Investor and Market Movers. We're doing our Card Kids Trade Zone again this year at the National for Sports Card Investor and Market Movers and Card Kids. So have your kids come to the Trade Zone at our booth. And then also Cards HQ will be in the dealer section as well. We've got a booth there as well. So make your rounds and visit all of us at the National. If you're not coming to the National, still take advantage of Joe's grading service by going to sportscardinvestor.com, clicking grading in the main menu bar, or if you're in Atlanta, coming to Cards HQ, be happy to take your cards here for Joe to screen. It's been a pleasure having you on the show again today, Joe.
Yeah, enjoyed it.
It's always fun. Thank you very much. And just a reminder for everybody out there, the full-length version of these shows are available on the Jeff Wilson Show channel on YouTube. They're also available on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, so make sure you are subscribed everywhere. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Take care.